Welcome, I'm Tom Dozier. This is Relaxation and Counterconditioning Therapy for Misophonia. I'm happy to get to present this to you. First, a little quick fact here about onset of misophonia. This is a graph from a study that we just had published, and it shows the rate of onset per year of age. And notice that misophonia continues to have people that have not had reported misophonia as a child that have it developed into their 20s and 30s and 40s. In fact, about 20% of the people here in this large survey reported onset after age 18. So it's a condition that can develop at any time, although it typically starts in childhood. Now, we think of misophonia as this huge emotional event, a condition that occurs from these common trigger stimuli. And here is a little drawing I want to use. This is showing, the top one is from Chris Pearson from one of his presentations. The bottom one is mine. Both of us work very closely with individuals, and we both see the fact that in misophonia, there is a trigger, there is a reflex, and then there are the emotions. And so that's the model, and you may not believe it, you may not have experienced this, but that's the model that we both work under. Now, the program that I want to talk about is Relaxation and Counterconditioning Therapy, the treatment protocol, and it includes education on misophonia reflexes, relaxation training, which is a skill development, counterconditioning, which is experiencing the natural triggers that you experience in a different way, or modified extremely weak triggers in a very positive situation. And then avoiding prolonged misophonia distress. That's important because misophonia distress causes your misophonia to increase in severity. And then ongoing support, which we find is critical. So here's your brain. You have your thinking brain up top, your cerebrum. You have your limbic system, your emotional brain in the center, which is not a system, it's a bunch of individual emotional structures. And then you have your autonomic nervous system at the bottom. Sometimes this is called the reptilian brain. It's your brain stem. I like to jokingly call it your lizard brain. A chameleon lizard crawls up on a rock and turns brown, crawls over on a leaf and turns green, but has no idea what brown or green is. This is just a reflex response center. And so what's a reflex? Well, a reflex is where there's a stimulus and an action. And so I shine a light in your eye, your pupil constricts. That's the stimulus, so the light response is a reflex. I pop a balloon behind you, you jump. And this is an automatic, involuntary process. There are reflexes that we are born with, such as sweating when we're to keep our body cool in the summertime, a startle reflex, breathing at night when we're asleep, our heart beating, all of our digestion. These are all innate, genetically defined reflexes. But there are also, that lizard brain can also learn or acquire reflexes, and this is called conditioning. And it happens through experience. A baby will develop a response to mother's voice. Food reflexes occur on about a 30-minute interval. If you eat spaghetti a lot, when you put the plate of spaghetti in front of you, before you start eating, if you pause for just a little bit, your lizard brain's going to start producing insulin, and your blood sugar level is going to drop before then it comes back up. So it has a way of trying to level things out. And these learned reflexes are controlled by a complex stimulus. It's not just the stimulus. If the plate of spaghetti is in front of someone else, it doesn't cause a reflex. If it's a picture, it doesn't cause the insulin producing reflex. So misophonia is a learned or an acquired reflex condition. So that lizard brain learning, here's your autonomic nervous system. It requires communication up to your upper brain to get the context, the situation. It has communications back and forth to your cerebellum, the motor neurons, some extra work up in this area in the superior cerebral peduncle. I don't know about that stuff much. And then it fires down into the muscle. Now that's the physical reflex of which we typically call Pavlovian conditioning or classical conditioning. And why do we have the anger with misophonia? Well, one of the theories or ideas is that anytime you or me as a human or as a mammal is jabbed or zapped, or there's some form of pain or aversive situation, it creates an aggressive response. In this little study, these were very docile, passive rats, and if they were sitting in their cage facing each other and they zapped them through the floor, they would immediately attack each other, even though neither had done anything. They attack and then they stop. And if they're facing away from each other, they just go boom, and they don't attack. So this emotional reflex is driven. It's shown that it's a learned reflex from the work of Sukhbinder Kumar, and its control center is the anterior insula cortex, and that's a communication center. It gets all the external and internal sensation. It relays out to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and so this is an emotional learning structure. So if I hear somebody slurp, my little AIC goes, hey, what do I do with this? And my VMPFC says, this is not important. Stay calm and move along. And it actually has a suppressive effect on an emotional response. But if you have misophonia, it relays back, oh, rage. And then the AIC fires down into the hippocampus and amygdala, and then you have your full-blown emotional experience. So this is, again, this ventromedial prefrontal cortex is an emotional learning structure, which takes something that's neutral and turns it either into a positive emotion or a negative emotion. So when it comes to these physical reflexes, which I say come out of your lizard brain, it's watching you. And I love Roz on Monsters, Inc. I'm watching you, always watching. And your lizard brain is doing that. It's always watching you. So I mentioned babies calming down to their mother's voice. We've done research studies on that, where we show that in the first day, the baby can develop a response to mother's voice. If it's mother's voice, pick up the baby, mother's voice, pick up the baby, then by the end of the first or second day, the baby starts to fuss, and mom can say, oh, it's okay, sweetie, let me pick you up. And before mom touches the baby, the lizard brain goes, oh. And that is a learned reflex. Gene Lipoff was a trauma center surgeon, and as a surgeon before cell phones, when he was on call, he had a pager, a little brick thing goes on your hip, goes brrr when somebody needs you, or beep, 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 beep. And so the pager would go off, and he was a trauma center surgeon, and a trauma center is your super emergency room where the worst patients are going to go. And anybody who goes to the trauma center as a patient is going to be ugly. It's going to be gross. So Dr. Lipoff pager would go off, brrr, and he would think, oh no, what am I going to have to deal with this time? Dreading going to do his job. Well, after about a month, pager goes off, brrr. Oh no, what am I going to have to deal with this time? I said, Gene, how long did that shoulder flinch persist? He says, until I got a different job and got rid of my pager, every time the pager went off, my shoulders went up. And I was telling this story to a woman, and she said, oh, like my husband. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, he's a surgeon, but now they have an app for their smartphone. And with the app, you can set the alert tone, the ringtone. So he changes his alert tone every week to prevent the reflex from developing. This is very common, just undocumented. One man knows the night he developed misophonia. He shared a room with his brother. His brother had allergies. He had anxiety. He couldn't go to sleep. After a relatively moderate amount of time, 20 minutes, maybe 30, he went to the couch and went to sleep. But after that one night, every time he heard his brother breathe, it triggered him. And it turned out in later years, he realized his shoulders were coming up. It happened to be where it was hitting him. So here's the model that I use for misophonia. There's a trigger, there's a physical reflex, there's the extreme emotions, and then all hell breaks loose. You have this huge distress response. You want to get out of the room, you cover your ears, you run away, you say things to stop it. But this, if we can just deal with that model, then we can apply some treatment techniques, and that's what we're going to be talking about with the RCT therapy. So another thing we looked at was trying to verify these physical reflexes, and have two studies, one by Kate Morrison and I, another by another couple of individuals. And in the first one that Kate and I did, we had people hear tiny little triggers, tiny, like trying to make something that wouldn't trigger them and barely raise it till it did, and then said, what did you feel physically and what emotions did you have? And so these arrows show the locations on the last table. One person would feel it in their jaw, another person in their pants, another person in the middle of their chest, another person their toes would curl. But everybody had a physical sensation when they heard these little triggers. Now, in the second study I mentioned, we actually measured people electrically. And so this is a 100 millisecond timing pulse. The trigger then starts here at this point, and 200 milliseconds later, we see a flinch. Here's another one where we had them hooked up to the deltoid muscles, paraspinal, and calves, and at about 200 milliseconds, we saw the calves and the deltoids fire, and on other triggers, we would find the paraspinals firing. So this is in 200 milliseconds, you cannot do a lot of reframing as to what you should do, right? This is just trigger and it hits you. Now, that 200 milliseconds is interesting because if I pop a balloon behind you, you're going to jump in 60 to 80 milliseconds. So there's an extra 120 milliseconds of context selection of going, where am I? What's the situation? Who's here? Oh, yes. Okay, that's it. Boom, fire the muscles. So that context is critical. And that's why sometimes people will trigger, you'll trigger to one sound, but of a family member, but if a stranger is making it, you don't. Or if an animal is making it, you don't, or vice versa. I was working with one woman doing some relaxation training, and she was relaxing, and she said, oh, just a second. I think there's kids playing behind my house. I said, is that triggering you? She goes, yep. So she goes away. She comes back a few moments later and says, oh, they're doing some repair work. It's not a problem. Let's continue. When she thought it was children playing, it was a trigger. When she found out it was adults working, it was not a trigger. And you've heard the lion roar at the start of an MGM movie. No big deal, right? But just picture yourself in a tent up in the mountains, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's all quiet, and you hear, you're going to have a drastically different response. And so that's because the context is different, even though the stimulus could be exactly the same. So to find your reflex, the way to do that is to use a single, short, soft trigger, like a tiny little sniff, and start low and kind of work up with someone. Or you can use the Misophonia Reflex Finder app here, which is a free app on both Android and iPhone. And with it, you can record a trigger. It has some built into it. And you can play that trigger at whatever volume you want to play. Here it's set at 2% volume for 1 second. And so you can slowly work that way up. It's not absolutely required to know your physical reflex, but it can definitely help with your treatment plan. So we have the trigger, the flinch, or the pain. There are people who have physical pain or a flash of warmth over them, although that's much less common than a physical reflex in the emotions. Now, if we can get rid of this reflex, and we don't get rid of it all at once, but as we get rid of it, as the reflex comes down, you find that this reflex is a signal to your anterior insula, which is dealing with your VMPFC and your emotions. So as that muscle sensation comes down from the trigger and down 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 and down, then the emotions can die out as the physical reflex dies out. So how do we get your lizard brain to unlearn this thing, that what it's picked up accidentally? It's accidentally picked up. And so let me tell you how it picks it up. That once there is the stimulus, there's a negative thought, and then there's a muscle tightening. Stimulus, thought, muscle tightening. Stimulus, thought, muscle tightening. The lizard brain sees that. Stimulus, muscle, and it flicks the muscle. And then it watches. It immediately, because it's neurotic and insecure, it immediately says, did I do the right thing? Ooh, the muscle tightens just a little bit. I did the right thing. They love me, right? And it'll keep doing it. Now, if you're in a distressful situation, then it's trigger, I hate that. And the lizard brain goes, oh my goodness, I did this, I'm seeing that. Next time I will do a better job. I will hit that muscle harder. And so as you've experienced, these triggers become worse and worse and worse. And also the emotions, so the physical reflex goes up, and also the little emotional learning spot, the BMPFC behind your eyebrows, it's experiencing these negative emotions and going, oh, okay, I gave you a little bit of irritation, but I'm seeing anger. Next time I'll do a better job. I'll give you anger. I'll give you rage. And it picks up as well. And then from the work of Dr. Kumar, it shows that those neurons have increased myelination, which is a little fatty sheath around the neuron that lets the neurons run faster and harder and not have interference from other neurons. So it's getting stronger and making your neurons more powerful. But the good news is that your lizard brain is neurotic and insecure and always second guessing itself. So there's a trigger and it hits the muscle, boom, and then it goes, oh no, did I do the right thing? Oh, I saw it tighten just a little bit. I did the right thing. I'll keep doing it. But if you're relaxed, then it can be trigger, boom, relax, and it goes, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. I hit the muscle. I didn't see you doing it. I saw it relaxing. I did the wrong thing. Next time I'll back off just a little bit. So trigger, boom, oh, too much, trigger, boom, oh, too much, trigger, boom, too much, trigger, I give up. And your lizard brain will actually give up. And I've seen a number of cases where it gives up in 20 to 30 minutes if the muscle is truly relaxed. And the lizard brain only watches for 2 to 3 seconds. So if you try to relax after a trigger, which is worth doing, it's trigger, boom, oh, I need to relax. Okay, oh, I'm relaxing. I feel better now. But the lizard brain has already looked away. It said, oh, I did this, you did that. I'm doing the right thing. Now, for a young person, the most influential timing is what your muscles are doing a half second after the trigger, after the lizard brain pulses the muscle. For an older guy like me, it's about 1 second. But still, by 3 seconds, nothing's happening. I typically say 2.5 seconds. Nothing's happening after that. So, but Roz is still looking. I'm watching you. I'm always watching. So if that lizard brain sees it hits the muscle and sees it relax, then it's going to adjust. Hit the muscle, relax, it's going to adjust, and it will keep backing off. So the way the muscle training is done through progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. Now I like to call it muscle relaxation training. Think of it as muscle relaxation practice. How do you get good at playing the violin? Practice. How do you get good at playing the piano? Practice. How do you get good at kicking a soccer ball? Practice. This is not a concept. This is a physical skill. And Dr. Jacobson developed this in the 1920s. He wrote a book entitled You Must Relax. And it was developed as a treatment for anxiety, which many people with misophonia do have anxiety. So that's a very beneficial treatment for anxiety. Now there's and you get daily deep relaxation, which has a number of benefits. Now, you can get that deep relaxation through yoga or meditation or mindfulness meditation. And some of those benefits include reduction in generalized anxiety and in all these other things that I will not articulate. But the real issue here is it's not the benefit of daily deep relaxation. It's the benefit of changing your brain to be able to relax on demand. So let's look at the neurons in your brain. There's two ways of learning. Anytime you can do something different, and when I'm working with a patient, I say, I was born and raised in Texas. And I say, just so we're clear, where was I born and raised? And they go, well, Texas, of course. And so I say, okay, we just demonstrated that your brain changed because you couldn't have given me that answer moments ago. But that's changing within an existing pattern of neurons that are all connected. When it comes to being able to control your muscles, when you use a muscle in a certain way, like your hands, we tighten them and relax them and tighten and relax, it actually starts growing dendrite fibers, which are the interconnection fibers off of the cell body that make connections to other neurons. And so your brain is not static. When it sees a need for something, it starts growing these dendrite fibers and making new connections that don't exist. And these little dendrite fibers connect to the synaptic terminals on the other end of the axon. And so if I tell you, let's just do an example here. Clench your fist and hold it in front of you just like that, and then relax it. Just let it relax. Very easy to do because you've used these muscles millions of times in tension and relaxation. But without moving anything, just think of the muscles in the back of your neck and relax them. There's no connection. Think of your toes on your left foot and relax them. There's no connection. So by doing the muscle training, you're actually causing neuron fibers to grow in your brain so that you can say, relax my toes, and the motor neurons go, oh, we're relaxed. And so that's what we're doing. We're growing dendrite fibers in your brain to develop the skill of relaxing specific muscles on demand. So the benefits of muscle training for misophonia, well, you do get the improved health and well-being benefit. That's great. But the key is you develop the ability of relaxing your muscles on demand. If you will relax after a trigger, it will reduce your anger. That when you have an emotion, you have the thinking part up here and you have the physical part down here. And you think, that's so horrible, that's so rude, that's so disrespectful. And then you're angry. Yeah, I'm super angry. And then the brain looks down and goes, but your muscles are relaxed. You're not angry. Yeah, I really am. No, you're not angry. So relaxing brings down your autonomic response, shortens your anger. It's better than giving in and just tensing up, ready to punch somebody. But if you relax after a trigger and hold that relaxation, then it's going to be, if your muscles are relaxed, it's trigger, boom, relax. And the lizard brain says, not what I was expecting. Trigger, boom, relax. Oh, not what I was expecting. Trigger, boom, relax. I give up. Now, it doesn't take 3 times. It takes a lot of times. But relaxing and holding that relaxation will reduce future trigger responses. And the other thing is that if you have trouble sleeping, then doing muscle relaxation training in the evening can improve your sleep. And if you have trouble going to sleep, then you can actually relax and do a muscle training session in bed with the lights out. You don't want to over tense. And as you're thinking about your muscles, you're not thinking about your worries, and it's very easy for people to go to sleep. So it's a benefit that way also. So here is the app that I talked about, the Misophonia Muscle Relaxation Training app. The app is now at version 2, available on both on iPhones with version iOS of 13 or higher, and also on Android. It has some problems on old Android phones, and I don't know specifically which ones, but the app is free to download. So hopefully you've downloaded the app, and you can see that you want you to sign in, create an account, and then this page will come up, and it gives you your relaxation training. And we'll talk about these others, but also information on misophonia and relaxation. Once you hit the relaxation training button, then it takes you to this screen, which allows you to select a beginner session or an expert session. So beginner has more explanation and descriptions of what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be doing it. 1 and the 2 have different muscle sets with some variation in it. And I did that because before I developed the app, I was using 2 specific audio files from universities, and one used the muscles of 1, the other used the muscles that are now defined as number 2, and I just copied it into the app because it was working for the people I was working with. So you hit beginner 1, you hit edit, and that takes you to a page which lets you set some of the variables. You can select a voice. You can customize your muscles. If you click here, this will open up, and there's many muscles to select. Then you go to the bottom of this page. See, you can select your background music, your background sound. For iPhone, it's got a little play button here that you can press. For Android, you press and hold, and it will play a sample of the sound. These slider bars give you the relative volume. So, and then your phone buttons gives you the absolute volume. So I turned up the first one is the voice, the second one is the music, and the third one is the background sound. You hit start, takes you to this page. You hit the play button, and it'll wait for a little bit, and they'll start talking and tell you about how long it's going to take. This is just an approximation. It is not absolutely correct. When you start this, what I want to recommend is that you first go to the help page. If you click on misophonia and muscle relaxation, or I think it now says information on misophonia and muscle relaxation, then it'll take you to a help page, which I would like you to read and then watch the video. So that's your first homework assignment. Hit the button down here, read the information on the page, watch the video. You can also get to a help page by the little hamburger up here. And so here is your muscle training assignment. I want you to do a session, a basic 1, sorry, it should say beginner, not basic, beginner 1, and then a beginner 2, and that will help you understand enough of what you're doing to switch over to the expert 1, expert 2, and then just keep going, expert 1, expert 2, expert 1, expert 2, and do 3 to 4 sessions a day. What I'm asking you to do is an hour a day of relaxation training, right? An hour a day. And if you're triggered in any way by the audio, stop. It will only get worse. It will not get better. You cannot tolerate any level of triggering. Again, I recommend an hour a day for 2 weeks, okay? And if you know that your reflex is your shoulders coming up or is your neck tightening up, you can use the customization of the app to select different muscles, do more exercises with your neck if that's the case. But do an hour a day for 2 weeks. That's like the target to kick you off, and then you can go down from that. But I found that if people do not do this intensely, that we don't get the step function, the boost, you tire out and people drop out and it doesn't work. Okay, a little bit about the advanced options. Again, you can adjust the muscles. There's 9 more voices. The bottom 9 are the standard app only comes with the basic features with the 1 voice, but the app gives you full features for the first 7 days, so you can try it out. I had an email from someone in the Middle East, Mediterranean somewhere. They were in a camp, a migrant camp or a refugee camp, and she was horribly triggered to the voices. And I have a spot that she could try them without the app, and she came back. The only voice that did not trigger her was the computer voice of a little child. I said, okay, that's your voice. But you can also change how long you tense, how long you relax. You can have different endings and beginning files that have more or less time to them. And you can even turn on or off the little prompt to focus on the way it feels, the difference between tense and relax. And then here's all the muscles that are built into the app. But one of the things you can do, if there's something you want to do with your arms that's not in here, then you can select the extra 1 or extra 2, and when it says that, you can do whatever exercise you want to do, whatever tensing and relaxing of some specific. Let's say it's pulling your thumbs way back, whatever. I wouldn't expect that, but if that was your reflex, then that would be one that you could add in with the extra 1 or extra 2, and you have those extras in all the different muscle groups. And you could be creative as to how to make this work for you. Okay, so let me go back to the relaxation training and cover something that's really important, and that is you really want to focus on how it feels to be tense and how it feels to be relaxed. And noticing the difference is what causes the dendrites to grow in your brain. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of tensing and relaxing my fists here. So I'm going to tense, count to 10, relax, and say the ABCs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Okay, how much muscle training did I get for these muscles? The answer is 0, not at all. And the reason, because when I was tensing, I was thinking of numbers. When I was relaxing, I was thinking of the alphabet, neither of which is about the muscles. Therefore, no muscle, no neuron growth in my brain from doing that exercise. So when you tense, you think of the muscle. When you relax, you think of the difference and relax quickly. And it says that in the instructions, and think of the difference. Okay. So what do you do after you've done 14 or so of the muscle relaxation training sessions? Well, then you can start sequential relaxation. The app is not great with this unless you make a user-defined program, because it repeats too many muscles, because it uses the same program as the muscle training. And like it says, relax right fist, left fist, both fists. Well, if I relax my right fist and I relax my left fist, I don't need to try to relax both fists. They're already relaxed. So you can make a user-defined program. We'll fix that in the next revision. We'll enhance that. But essentially what you're trying to do is go through your body, thinking of a muscle, my fist, relax. Thinking of another muscle, relax. Thinking of another muscle, my upper arm, relax my other upper arm, relax my shoulders, relax my neck. And you just step through the body from top to bottom, bottom to top, any way you want to, of relaxing your muscles on demand. And the research shows that when you practice relaxing your muscles on demand, after you've done the relaxation training, only after you've done the relaxation training, then your ability to relax under pressure is improved, right? Your performance of relaxing on demand is improved. So this is practicing relaxing on demand. Then I want you to do the total instant relaxation, or Ragdoll. And Ragdoll, you know, floppy doll, no muscles, right? No muscle tensions, everything drops. So with this, you don't want to fall on the ground. You want to relax all the extra tension. So I'm sitting here, and if I'm going to relax, I just relax. I worked with the man who taught this to me, had misophonia for 30 years. And if you were talking to him and you triggered him, he would just go, keep his eyes open, everything just relax his jaw, relax his shoulders. And then once the anger went down, then he would go back and continue. So I want you to practice the Ragdoll 5 times a day, releasing all your muscles as quickly as you can, extra tension in them, when you're not being triggered. And you can do this sitting, you can do this standing, you can do this walking. You just want to get rid of the extra tension that kind of builds up, and practice doing that. And the app works very well for this. Okay. Then avoid misophonia distress. Okay. You want to add noise to your world. I love the noise app by TM Soft, White Noise by TM Soft. I recommend people to get the $1 blue version. You can use open ear earbuds. You know, we've all heard the phrase, it's so quiet you can hear a pin drop. That when it is silent, your ears turn up the sensitivity setting so that noises seem louder, they're more noticeable, and the fidelity or clarity is perfect for your lizard brain to freak out. So you can add noise to the room. You can use noise canceling headphones and a noise app or music. Do not use noise canceling headphones as earplugs. Use them with the noise app or music. You can add a box fan to the room, a noise machine. Box fans are great. 20-inch square, put cardboard on the back of them. They don't blow anything. They just roar wonderfully. And it's okay to move away. It is okay. The only thing that you do not want to do with your misophonia triggers is to stay there and endure misophonia distress. That when you're experiencing that distress and your stress levels going up, you find that your physical reflex is getting stronger, your emotional reflex is getting stronger, and any stimulus that you're noticing can become a trigger. That's why many people have visual triggers to jaw movement for eating, because they're triggered, they're noticing the jaw, they're being triggered, they're noticing the jaw. The lizard brain goes, I see the jaw, I see the muscle. I see the jaw, I see this muscle. And then the lizard brain develops it as a reflex, and it runs, it'll continue without hearing anything. If you were triggered to the sight of someone chewing and you lost your hearing, you would still be triggered to the sight of them chewing. Okay. And again, try to relax. If you can add noise and relax, or just relax, and your distress level is coming down, as long as it is coming down, you're good to stay. If you're there and your distress level is going up, then you're making your misophonia worse. You need to either add more noise or move away with a plan of coming back after you've calmed down. And then counter conditioning. This is the heart and soul of this treatment. This is what we're trying to get you ready to do. So you want to add the noise to reduce, so that triggers are not a 9. If you have a trigger that's a 9 and your ability to relax is here, you're just going to go through the roof. But if you add the noise and that 9 level trigger comes down to like a 2 or a 1, and you're only hearing 1 out of every 5, and you're relaxing, then that trigger can die out. Okay, so you want to relax when you're going into a situation where there might be triggers, because the tenser you are, the more you're pre-tense, the worse your misophonia response will be. You want to relax immediately after triggers to reduce the length of the anger and the distress response. And you really want to relax before triggers and hold that relaxation through the triggers. And then it's usually good to breathe slowly with the out breath being longer than your in breath. That triggers a rest and digest response of your lizard brain. And if you know your initial physical reflex, really work at keeping that relaxed. This will change your lizard brain. So let me give you the story of my daughter, Melissa. This is Melissa, Katie, and Ben. And Melissa had developed a trigger to kids swinging their muscles, kids swinging their feet. And I know exactly where it developed. She had a desk here that was with a cabinet in front of her, and beside her was the normal kitchen desk. And Katie would sit on that desk and swing her feet. And Melissa's catching out of the corner of her eye, she's noticing Katie's, feet moving, and it's kind of, tensing or naturally. And so Melissa's in church teaching the 3-year-olds, and she goes, they're swinging their legs. Oh my goodness, they're swinging their legs. Why are they swinging their legs? And all of a sudden she goes, wait a minute. Their feet don't touch the floor. They're paying attention. Why am I so upset? And she focused on her body, and she noticed her trapezius muscles were clenching up. And she found that the longer she watched them swing their legs, the bigger the knot in the trapezius muscles became. So she said, so Dad, I just started relaxing my trapezius muscles and it went away. I went, Melissa, that is wonderful. How do you relax your trapezius muscles? She goes, Dad, I have a degree in dance. Right? We know how to control our muscles. Okay, but that's no help to me with the people I'm working with. So anyway, relax and it went away. This is my wife, Pam, in a field of tulips. Now, Pam has a breath-related reflex. If you feel something in your chest, then try breathing in slowly and breathing out slowly, and then immediately breathing in slowly. I call it scuba breathing. If you've ever done scuba diving, the #1 rule is you always breathe, or you can you can ruin your lungs. So I have the junk side of the house with the lawnmower and the chairs and the garbage cans, and she's got the garden side with her chickens. And so she loves her chickens. She's got these chickens. They hop up on the ledge. She feeds them treats from her through the window. And she came in a while back and says, Tom, you've got to do something about the chickens. They're driving me crazy. And I said, what are they doing? She goes, they're clucking. And I said, Pam, they're chickens. They're supposed to cluck. She goes, no, they're squawking. And like Buffy starts squawking, and then Roxy jumps in, and then Susie jumps in, and they're all squawking at the same time, and I can't stand it. Now, she was concerned. She does not want to offend. And she was concerned that the neighbors would hear the chickens. And so she was like, oh no, maybe the neighbors will hear the chicken. Oh no, maybe the neighbors will hear the chicken. Well, her lizard brain saw that and was making her hold her breath. And so for her, she just did slow, steady breathing in, breathing out, breathing in as they were squawking. As soon as they'd start squawking, she'd start doing the slow, steady breathing, and the trigger just went away. So this is very predictable. You can also do counter conditioning with recorded triggers. A recorded trigger can be far reduced to a real live trigger. That a real live trigger, first off, you can't control it. You can control this. You can't shorten it. It is what it is. But with the trigger tamer, you can determine what volume do you want it to play at, how long, how much of the trigger, like 300 milliseconds or 400 milliseconds, or whatever you want, and how often it plays. And you can either use the music that you can have in your phone, and if it's an iTunes, if it's an iPhone, it has to be in iTunes downloaded to your phone, or you can use the music or play something from another device. And so with this, you're relaxing, you're doing something fun. I'll show a case of a young lady who was doing pottery. Throw a potter's wheel and the gooiness of the clay in your hands, and she enjoys doing it. And so she did, whenever she was doing pottery, she did the trigger tamer, and the reflex starts dying down. And, you know, this isn't an instant thing. This is a process, and I'll show you some of the time there. So here's some people, here's some cases. We have sometimes people, I guess the only thing I want to do, I'll show you the individual of these, but high on the left, going down on the right, definitely varied in how quickly and how it approaches. So here's an individual who was disabled from her misophonia. She had a jaw flinch reflex. She had quit her job as a professional because she could not get accommodations. She was talking to her boss and said something about pin clicking. He took his pin and he clicked it in her face. And she quit her job. She moved into a room in her parents' basement. And for 2 years, she had been in isolation, either through headphones or just staying away from all sounds. And she was like almost maxed out on the severity, and she came down very quickly. She was very lucky that she had a jaw reflex that she could relax, and she had a real life situation the first week where she would relax her jaw and the trigger just died out, and she learned like, wow, this is really great. Tom has something to, you know, Tom knows what he's talking about. And one thing about a trigger, that as it decays and drops out, as soon as it stops, if it totally goes away, as soon as you leave that situation and the trigger stops, overnight that reflex is going to regrow. So the next night, maybe instead of, you know, it takes half as long to go away. So anyway, here she is, came down after 10 weeks, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 visits. She was doing really well, and a year later, she's doing really well. Here's another person. A lot of this may be management, but then you really need to get it down. And this person still has a ways to go, right? They still have some triggers in their life, and if you stop here and go back to your natural way of doing things, the default response to triggers is to strengthen that reflex and have it grow back up. I'll show you one like that. This person I thought was doing wonderful, but more I've learned since we had this case, I would definitely want this person to continue longer to bring down both of these lines. Yes, it's a big improvement, but it's not over. Again, this one should have gone on longer. Here's an individual who was doing really good with the triggers, but he was still anxious. And then he went on Zoloft, and his anxiousness came down, and he was very happy. You know, here's a person who worked away through the process, and finally at 26 weeks, that's 6 months, right? But notice we're meeting every month or so, probably for like a half session. This is an individual who was responding very, 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 very well. And I used to show this graph stopping right here because I was thinking, oh, she did so good. She knew what she was doing. Well, when I contacted her 15 weeks later, she was virtually unchanged. What had happened is she had lost her evening job due to COVID, and so she canceled the appointment. So we put her on the pro bono program, and you know, her triggers came right on down. This individual definitely shows the need for continued work. She was responding really well, and she contacted me out here. I think she canceled her, you know, her week 8 or 9 appointment, and then she called me out, contacted me in week 13 and said, this isn't working. Isn't there some hypnotherapy treatment, which there is a very good hypnotherapy treatment called sequential repatterning hypnotherapy. And I said, well, let's meet and talk about it. Well, she wasn't doing the things that she was doing back here to bring her misophonia down. She went back to doing those things for the next month, you know, went right back down. So this is something you're going to have to keep doing right. I know one lady who has virtually eliminated all of her triggers, but if she's stressed or tired, she'll still get triggered by her husband. So if he's going to do something like eat a tangerine, she goes, oh, I'd like to do some trigger training, she calls it. I'd like to listen. And so she comes over, she listens, she watches. whatever he does, which would normally could be triggers, but it's not triggering her in that moment. And because she's seeing it and not being triggered by it, her lizard brain is going, oh, this is normal. This is normal. There's no reaction to this. And then sometime when she's more stressed, then she reacts less. Here's the young lady who did the pottery, right? So we were having difficulty getting this program started. Mom said, look, we need to meet every week to keep her on task. And so we met every week. And I think they were out of town, or one of us was unavailable there. And she started doing pottery with the trigger tamer. And her lizard brain started changing predictably and came on down till she was happy eating with her family. Everything was good. But again, this is still at some level of a concern here that it needs to keep going down. This individual, again, 20 weeks. This person had only had misophonia for maybe about a year or less, and her reflex just went away, and she was just like, "That's great, we're done." Here's another person whose reflex just went away. This is less common. Usually, you have to work on it. Don't know how this person is doing now. They could have easily started tensing up and come back up. Here's another one, 15 weeks. But usually it's more into longer times. I love this girl. She kept working at it. She had tons of triggers. She started talking to her parents. She started eating with her parents. She started eating with, doing other things, reducing the noise. And out here at week 32, her only trigger left that she experiences is at work. She works in a feed store, and this one guy comes in whistling, and if she's helping a customer, it's like, and then she goes back to what she's doing, relaxes, trigger goes away, and that's the only trigger left in her life. But this is 32 weeks, right? That's more than 7 months. But it takes time for these reflexes to change with this treatment. This is not like taking antibiotics that make it go away. But it's in 7 days you're going to be fine, or 10 days. But this is also not something that I ask people to do for a month and a half with the promise that it'll get better. Usually by the end of the second week, when we start the activities, we see the benefit of the program and we know it's right for that person. So the program we're talking about here is Relaxation and Counterconditioning Therapy. It's education on misophonia reflexes. It's the relaxation training, the skill development, counterconditioning, which is not your traditional exposure therapy. It's very positive situation, little bitty triggers, they die out, avoiding prolonged misophonia distress, and ongoing support. So there is good reason for hope. There is treatment for misophonia. It's available by video chat, and you must relax. Now, I will also say the work, sequent repatterning hypnotherapy is also a program that does very good. So now I'm open to questions. Oh, thank you very much. And I look forward to your questions. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so generally, as I see it, no. The question is, once they drop to 0, do they need to continue the therapies regularly to maintain the 0? And the answer is not sure. Like the one woman who would occasionally listen to her husband eating a tangerine, that was something that helped her, right? So she did a little bit there in terms of managing her life. She also had a lot of stress, and so with that stress, she had just general anxiety. So she would practice going through the day. He had a little app set that go bing, and she'd go, oh, I need to relax. Bing, oh, I need to relax. And so, some level of chilling and saying chilled is important. So I have a question here from Lucas. For roughly what percentage of the population is this method effective on? Well, I know it's effective on more than 50%. one of the issues is that I have a number of people who just come and see me and say thank you, or they don't do the work. My guess is of the people who try then and actually do the treatment, somewhere between 70 and 80% have a good response. I was asked to repeat the hypnotherapy. It's called sequent repatterning hypnotherapy, and you can go find that on if you Google sequent repatterning Chris Pearson, and you can also, it's a multi-week program. You can also find that on Misophonia Institute, I believe, in Misophonia treatment. There's some things about that. Have a question here. Is it stress that causes misophonia? Not really. It's a stimulus, a thought, and a reaction. A stimulus, a thought, and a reaction. Stimulus, thought, reaction. The lizard brain sees that pattern. Stimulus, boom, muscle reflex. I know a man who, in his late 20s, he had a pair of mockingbirds build a nest outside of his bedroom window. Doesn't that sound so cute? Baby birds outside your window. Only the male mockingbird chirps 24 hours a day. And so as a result, he was laying there trying to go to sleep at night, and he actually developed, his physical reflex was chills on his upper arms, and he only developed it to to the specific mockingbird in Northern California, and then it's spread since to other places. So anytime there's a stimulus, a negative thought or emotion, there's going to be a physical reaction. And that stimulus, thought, reaction, stimulus, thought, action, muscle, the brain sees it, and now you have misophonia. Misophonia is caused by the same neurology that causes a baby to relax when he or she hears mother's voice. So it's not neurons misfiring, it's not chemical imbalance, you're not being possessed by aliens or have some defect in your upper brain. It is strictly accidental learning. So if you do have anxiety, you would be more likely to tense up around situations, and therefore you would be much more likely, or stress, then you would be much more likely to develop misophonia. No, I did not mention that the brain will give up after 2 or 3 seconds. I mentioned that the brain stops looking after 2 or 3 seconds, where it's looking, and the most powerful time is that ½ second to 1 second, and then it kind of becomes less effective and less effective and less effective, and by maybe 2.5 seconds, there's no way of affecting your lizard brain. So but with a trigger, that trigger reflex, if you're relaxed, it takes 20 to 30 minutes if you're really relaxed to bring down that reflex response. So another question here, have you found that individuals with mental health disorders have a more difficult time finding the ability to get relief? Depends on what it is, and depends on where their physical reflex is. So if a person is depressed, if they don't have anything that makes them happy, if there's no happy time for them, then it's much harder. If they're depressed and they can't do the work of the relaxation training, it's much harder. So other health disorders and mental disorders can be problematic. Can this be used as prevention prior to entering a situation where you know there will be triggers? Well, absolutely, because you want to try, the more relaxed you are, the more likely the reduced response you'll have. When you're tense, by the way, that word tense as an emotion means tense muscles. When you're tense, then you're more responsive, and so if you can relax, that can reduce the severity of the trigger. And if you stay relaxed, if you hear an irritating sound and you relax, then you can actually avoid picking up a new trigger. Is misophonia hereditary? There are hereditary factors, and usually a person who is more anxious and emotionally sensitive, emotionally in tune, which I believe is going to be hereditary, are more likely to develop misophonia. If I'm a sensitive little child and I know every time I see that look that mommy's upset, and then I hear crunch, mommy frowns, crunch, mommy frowns, crunch, mommy frowns, I'm going to develop misophonia. Misophonia is contagious, and it can be developed by the parent without misophonia. One mother whose daughter only triggered to her middle little brother's chewing in the car. Mother heard this click, 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 click of the tooth. Mom was afraid that her daughter would pick up a trigger. The daughter did not, but mother did to that sound. And then at the dinner table, mom noticed she could hear her husband chewing. Again, she was concerned every time she heard her husband chewing, like, oh, I hope her daughter doesn't get a trigger to dad. Daughter didn't, but mother did. So very much it is an acquired condition. Okay, tying into the mental health question, do many of your patients also take medicine for anxiety or OCD? And have you experienced patients seeing improvement with prescription medicine or supplements like magnesium? Now, magnesium was all the rave on the internet groups a couple of years ago. And I contacted the woman who, by chat, and we shared what was going on. Because most people were not. I mean, if you have a magnesium deficiency and magnesium improves your health, yes, you'll do better. It'll reduce your misophonia most likely. But this lady had a leg injury and she had chronic leg pain. And when she took the magnesium supplement, her leg pain went away. And when her leg pain went away, her misophonia dropped way down. I know another woman who had TMJ. She probably had a jaw clench reflex, and she went in and had Botox shots in her jaw for her TMJ. And when she did, her misophonia came way down. How does this webinar compare to a typical therapy session with you? Well, first off, there's a lot more back and forth discussion, but it's really making sure you understand. A therapy session would include making sure that you understand the concepts, working with you on how you're doing with your relaxation training, helping you figure out what your initial physical reflex is, if you want me to, which I typically do, and also making plans on how in the coming week or two weeks or so or whatever, what you can do to bring down, to change your lizard brain. And so this has a lot of similar components, except it's a lot more interactive in a therapy session. What about when triggers are mostly from immediate family? Well, that's one of the reasons you want to use the noise. You can use, you're better off to put yourself into a noise isolation with headphones and white noise, pink noise, rain noise, some kind of noise, than you are to sit there and endure, because the more you endure, the stronger your physical reflex gets, the stronger your emotions get, and then you pick up new triggers. So this is a very, very, very unfortunate about dealing with misophonia in a family with immediate family members. So, okay, so are there any more questions here? Okay, with that said, I do work with individuals regularly, daily, and would be very happy to help anyone who would like to help. Send me an email and I will send you information about the services I provide. But go out there and relax. I mean, try the relaxation, try it, and see if you can't relax and make your life a whole lot better. Kathy asked the question, how common is misophonia? It affects probably 10 to 15% of adults in the United States. So there's probably 30 million people in the United States or more that have misophonia. It's very common. And in fact, in a college level psychology class, which is probably a bit more neurotic than the engineering majors, it was 1 out of 5, 20% had clinically significant misophonia. So, okay, and I do not have misophonia. And part of the reasons I understand this is because I approach this not as someone who's experienced the trigger and the anger, but somebody who just was looking, and quite frankly, the physical reflex component was just put right in front of me. It was shown to me. So I didn't figure this out because I was smart. I had this shown to me. Little girl said she didn't have a reflex, she just felt rage. And we did some very weak trigger relaxation training after, and we saw her jumping. And afterwards we said, did you feel anything physically? She goes, yeah, I felt it in my arms. And Mom and I could see that. And I said, well, what emotions did you have? And she says, oh, none. So I've seen this quite disconnect between the physical reflex and the emotions. So, gosh, Samantha, thank you very much. Thank you, and Kathy, thanks to all of you. I really wish you well. Take care.